Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today. Broadcast 2 hours, Monday through Friday, right here on GCN. John is engineering the broadcast. I'm Vincent Finelli. Today, 2 instructors. And we're going to be talking about observations. We're going to be talking about trolls and the diseases that they carry. Welcome, Steve Elkins.
Good morning, Vincent. Good morning.
Good morning. Steve is a broadcaster on republicbroadcasting.org. He does a show on Sundays, Off the Beaten Path, it's called, and you can tune in. Please do. Kurt Wilson is with us, the armchair survivalist. His website, SE, as in Survival Enterprises, the number 1, SE, the number 1.US. Welcome, Kurt Wilson.
Hey, guys, what's happening?
Good morning, Kurt.
Well, I was sitting by the phone for over a year. Waiting, patiently waiting for it to ring, and it did. It rang. Kurt Wilson was on the other end, and I was able to breathe a sigh of relief. Thank you for calling, Kurt. It's been a year.
Well, I can only handle you once a year. I'm sorry. Just so you guys know, Vinny and I are brothers. Not literally, but literally. You know what I mean? I mean, every time I start to say something, he's thinking it in his head, and vice versa. The only difference between us is I don't live next door to him. We've gone through almost everything the same, except he's got a big farm and I don't. I'm smarter than he is.
Yeah, and with a farm, everything is over the years. I started farming in 1989, and with farming, everything has gotten heavier, farther, more expensive over the years. Everything.
Yeah, and I deal with a lot of farmers in our company. We deal with a lot of farmers, and it's you guys. Are you getting the heat wave right now?
Absolutely, we are in a heat wave, and we're close to the epicenter of it. We're looking at it feels like 110 this afternoon. And fortunately, it's heading toward Washington D.C. and I love it because I hope those guys get a real taste for what it's like to be really thirsty, really hot, unbearable heat. I hope that their engines overheat. I hope that, I'm talking about, the alleged representative types and their staff. I hope that they get to experience what we get to see often. And I hope that they knock off the climate engineering.
Oh, no, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. I got to tell you, I'm here in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and the only temperature problem we have is every time I wash the damn car, it rains the next day, and that's it. It's like it's nice and it's 47 degrees outside right now. Of course, it's a little after 7 a.m. in the morning here, and it's light breeze, and it'll get up to about 80 today. And then tomorrow, next week, it's supposed to get into the 90s. But it's nice up here. It's nice. It is nice up here, and it's nice to be away from all the other pains. But we have customers all over the world. And this funny thing you mentioned, the climate change, that kind of crap. Half the people that talk to us are saying it's too damn hot here. It's not normal. And the other half are saying it's too damn cold here. It's not normal.
Well, I would say as a farmer, farmers are concerned about two things: too much rain and not enough rain. And lately, we've been having so much rain that we've only had 2 periods of 2 days in a row where we were able to cut, ted, rake, and bale hay. And it was just brutal. It was excruciating. Early in the morning till it was getting dark, and we still haven't picked up our hay. It's still in the fields, and we've got to bring it back to the barn. But it was so hot. It was so hot that the hay was drying in 1 day. Now, normally it would take 3 days, but we could cut it and it was dry the next day. Extremely unusual. And we had to wear long sleeve white shirts, like dress shirts that, we used to wear in business meetings, long sleeve, collared white shirts, just because the heat would drill through our skin. Steve Elkins, what's it like in Florida?
I'm not in Florida right now. I am actually in Indiana.
Okay.
Visiting my mother, so taking care of some personal business up here. But Florida is Florida. It's hot, humid, and that's pretty much the norm. So no change there.
Okay.
Yeah, we're in Florida. Where do you live, Steve?
I'm in Central Florida, near Orlando.
Near Orlando. I got a friend of mine, good friend of mine. He's the only mortician in the Keys.
Oh. Okay.
And yeah, so people are dying to see him. But anyway, I call him up. Him and I play games on the internet now and then, and it's 10 o'clock my time. And so what is that? That's 1 o'clock you guys.
Yeah, probably.
And I call him up and I'm talking to him and he goes, "Hey, hang on a second. I got to turn your AC up." I go, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, it's 1 in the morning." He goes, "Yeah, I know. That's why it's only 80 degrees."
Yeah, that's Florida.
Yeah.
Kurt, you told me something extremely fascinating and extremely concerning. You're talking about people who are monitoring, watching, reporting, recording those of us who are on the radio and in the media, and as well as other people. And they actually have, they go to work. They go to work like it's a real job, like they're actually doing something important. But, what they're doing is they're reporting on us. Would you like to share that?
Yeah, let me, and I do have to talk quick because I can only be here for the first hour because I got to get out of here. But let me tell you guys what's happening, just so you all know. I've been on the air for about 20 years, maybe a little bit over, and my radio show is The Armchair Survivalist. I've taken a 1-year sabbatical, and just so everybody knows, I'm back in the saddle again starting this Sunday. And you want to find out more, you go to armchairsurvivalist.com. And I broadcast over the internet and over satellite. I was broadcasting over shortwave, but I lost that venue, and I'll maybe figure it out later on. But meanwhile, so I was on a network. A bunch of amateurs were running the network, and this is 10 years ago. So I quit the network, and then I went on to another network, Scriptures for America. Now I have a chat room, as do a lot of people. Vinny doesn't, because he doesn't have time for that garbage. But so I would monitor the chat room, and I'd do my radio show, and my wife and son would be in there. And we were getting people coming in the chat room saying, "Do you know what John is saying about you on his show? Do you know what Bill said about you on his show?" And I'm like, what is this crap? They're talking about other hosts from different shows. And I just ignored it. Except these same people were going to the other shows and saying, "Do you know what Kurt's saying about you on his show? Do you know what he's saying about you?" These people do this. They're antagonists. They're the people that start the problems. And they were going to all the different shows, and they were passing third-party rumors on and saying, they're saying, this guy's saying blankety blank about you, and go to another show saying, that guy's saying blankety blank about you. And unfortunately, being human, these people were believing it. Now, I know better because I have had intelligence training, and I know what this action is. So this went on for about a year, and it was getting worse and worse and worse. So I finally I said, that's it. I'm going to start doing some investigation, because that's what I am. I'm an investigative journalist. So I started doing an investigation, and I'm tracking these IP addresses back. And, of course, they're spoofing most of them. But fortunately for me, I know what a MAC address is, and I can follow it. And I'm following these addresses, and they're all leading to Orange County, into a certain area. Now, I nailed it down to it was like a 5-block area in Orange County, California. So I go on Google Earth, and I'm looking at this area. And lo and behold, in the middle of this area is this big, I think it's like 24-story building, which has no signs on it anywhere, no windows on it. It's just a big concrete block. It's owned by the CIA.
Uh-huh.
So these are agent provocateurs. These are the people that come into a chat room. And now, this is big. This is not just chat room. This is also Facebook, Twitter, all of the other pinhead places where millennials like to spend all of their time. And these provocateurs go in there and they start problems. They start people getting upset with other people. This is their job. They go to work in the morning, they clock in, they go there, and they're assigned certain areas. I had two of them that were assigned to my chat room. Okay? And one of them, I actually found where he worked, because he had a second job as well, and all I did was send a text to where he worked. Just said, "Hi, how are you?" That's it. But basically I blew his cover. So he ended off, and I still have it. And this is 5 or 6 years ago. I still have the email he sent me apologizing, saying he's never going to do this kind of crap again, and he's done with the whole business. And the other one, we just banned him. He would have a different IP address every 5 seconds. So this is the kind of thing that happens, and this happens with all of us. I've had people come in, after I'm on your show, Vinny, I've had people come into my chat room. Now, my chat room is usually only populated on Sundays. But sometimes somebody would go in there and say, "Hey, Kurt, why don't you talk about blankety blank? Why don't you talk about this?" Or somebody passed away that we knew, or something like that. This guy would come in there and he'd start passing rumors off. Or they start acting like racists. They'd come in there knowing full well that nobody in the chat room is racist. And they'd come in there, because there's no Democrats in there. And everybody knows that there's no racist Republicans. All racists are Democrats. So they come in there and they start talking about black, yellow, brown, this, that, or whatever. And everybody knows. Everybody knows that that's what this guy is, an agent provocateur. And you hear every day about some person who committed suicide because their whole life is based on Facebook or Twitter, and they've been getting insults on that media, and nobody can track it down. It turns out, I guarantee you, these are agent provocateurs. They're either government hired, or they're agency hired, or they're corporate hired.
All right, we'll be right back. Class, I wanted you to hear that firsthand from Kurt Wilson. We'll be talking more about that when we come back. Kurt Wilson and Steve Elkins. Class, there's the old term, the 80-20 rule. And what does that mean? For those of you who haven't heard of that yet, think of it like this. 20% of the students in let's say a public school classroom, 20% of the students cause 80% of the problems. 20 in a bank environment, if you look at all the credit card holders of a particular bank, 20% of the card holders make 80% of the purchases. Those kinds of things. That's what 80-20 means. And when you think about what these trolls do, they have learned about this. So what I have seen from my experience, there'll be a troll who will hit 80% of the time, meaning he'll do bad things 80% of the time. Negative comments, disruptive, arrogant, 80% of the time. But 20% of the time, he'll say something nice. So people will go, well, he's probably okay. He's just having a bad day. But what they don't realize is it's all intentional. So that there's a small amount of being nice or being positive, but most of the effort is directed at hit and run. Do you agree with that, Kurt?
Oh yeah, exactly. It's a misdirection, is what it is, and they do it all. And even in real life, you'll see that. You'll see that your friend or acquaintance who is generally a jerk, but now and then he does something that's nice and out of the ordinary for somebody else, or says something nice or whatever. So you start to justify his actions and say, well, this person is not as bad as you think. He's just troubled. Yeah.
We used to talk about that. We used to call that poisoning the well. I'm not sure if that's still the scenario we're looking at here, but we always call that poisoning the well. Somebody letting somebody in, and behind the scenes they're actually trying to sabotage, take it down, but then they have the appearance as if they're trying to help. We always call that poisoning the well. Yeah,
it's an intelligence, it's an operative term and action, and it's been around for thousands of years.
Right.
And it plays on a human's willingness to grant credence and respect to somebody. Everybody wants to like everybody. I mean, that's what it is. Everyone wants to trust everyone. Everyone thinks that everyone is deserving of trust, and they give it. That's why so many cons and scams work all over the internet, because people believe, they want to believe.
Steve, what has been your experience with attacks, on your broadcast? Do you get them on the air when you are live? Do you get them as comments? How are you a beneficiary of these trolls?
Well, it's interesting you ask that, because just a couple of days ago I was doing a broadcast with John Stadmiller, and we know of this troll that calls in, and he just tries to cause trouble. There's several of them who call in, and they do try to get one host going after another. That's an easy way of breaking up a network, is having your host believing the lies that somebody's slamming you on their show, and then basically you start losing all your staff, all your hosts. So that's an easy way to break up a network. We've caught on to that pretty fast. We know what's going on. But I had a caller the other day, a socialist, trying to tell us how socialism is a good thing, except he was one of these socialists that, not me, everybody else. Let's take their money and not my money. He claimed to have $1 million in the bank, and he wanted to tax people at 90% beyond $400,000. So I said to him, so essentially what you're saying with your $1 million in the bank right now, so you keep the 400, and we'll tax your 600,000 at 90%. Are you okay with that? Of course not. So he's one of those exceptionalist socialists. We call him out to find out he actually is a paid troll. He goes through the networks. He calls other hosts. He tries to start trouble, and he's on a ban list now. But what I find, Kurt, I don't know if you have this situation here, and I know they're provocateurs, and I understand how these people go to work, and that's their job, to take down something or to cause chaos and division in a network. But I get these emails sent to me after my show sometimes. They're all in capital letters. It's all biblical scripture of how I'm so wrong, I don't understand the world. And it's always, it's actually pointing fingers at Israel, the Jew thing, Jew. And I know I'm not buying into this, and what I usually do is just don't respond, and I put them on a block so I never get them. But they come in through a back door using another name or something else, and it's simply the all capital letters screaming at me with the biblical scripture. Do you get those?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hold that thought. Hold that thought. We're going into a break. We'll be right back. Kurt, let us know what happens to you. Steve Elkins is with us. And Kurt Wilson's with us. Steve was talking about email attacks, and what have you been experiencing, Kurt?
Well, yeah, he gets the same thing, and that's standard. Yes, there are people out there who are adamant about this, that, or the other thing, or they hate Jews, or they think that Judaism is the only way that world will be saved, or they have different viewpoints, right? So that happens, but there are people who are, they are simply psychotic. They're not working for the government. They're psychotic. And they listen to people. They listen to you. They listen to me. They listen to Steve. They listen to John. They listen to everybody out there, okay, including Alex and Jeff and Steve Quayle. And they correct everybody. And they don't understand grammar. They don't understand punctuation. And they don't understand that, don't make everything caps. Well, I get this one guy that sends me this crap all the time, or he did. Of course, after a while, it got to be irritating, so I simply backtracked him. I got his IP. I followed it back. I found out who's hosting that IP. I physically phoned up the hosting company, talked to them, and complained about it. And next thing you know, he's off there. Well, that didn't help. It made it matter. And he goes on and he gets free, Gmail addresses, email addresses, or yahoo.com or AOL.com. He gets all these free email addresses, and there's places that will host your site for free, and so he puts up a site that's just insane on what they're saying, and it's chronic. Boom, boom, boom. Yes, it's a pain in the butt, but you just gotta use your filters on your email and keep filtering and read the headers on his emails. Find out where it's coming from, file a complaint to send back, tell them criminal activity or spam activity through their servers, and just keep doing it, and eventually they peter out. Of course, I've been gone for a year now, so I've only heard from him twice during the whole time.
Kurt, with those emails, and I started thinking about some of the scams that came to me before, and I found that the punctuation, the grammar errors, that they were foreigners, usually coming from India. Do you believe that to be the case on some of these cases here? They're just foreigners that are hired, or it's coming from a location outside the United States?
Oh yeah. And I can't say over the air. I'll tell Vinny later on. I can't say over the air how I responded to some of these, but yes, I actually have friends in India and Pakistan, right. And they have whole rooms of people. This is all they do. This is it. This is how they make money. You clock in, you do this crap. You're a Nigerian prince, or you're a Nigerian woman whose husband died, and she wants you to allocate $27.5 million to needy charities in the United States, and you'll get a third of it. That kind of crap. It's real. It's a big business. Nigeria, and you understand the Nigerian letter concept, right?
Yes.
Okay. And Nigeria is not even a real country. It's created. It's a 100% created country. It wouldn't exist if the United States didn't have foreign aid. And the United States knows that it's a criminal nation. Anyone from Nigeria, it's like Somalia. Anyone from Somalia or Nigeria are criminals. They're 100% criminals.
Yeah. I got a question for both you and Vincent. Vincent, last year, and I had a show on this talking about the identity theft of Americans. $50 billion lost last year. We got a government that seems to have wars on select things. So right now they have a war on plastic straws. In California, you got a war on plastic bags, single-use plastic bags. And there always seems to be wars on something, but something of $50 billion doesn't seem to set off any alarms with the United States government to say, you know what, we're going to catch these people that are actually creating all these entities of identity theft. I was telling Vincent the other day, about 2 weeks ago, I evidently a code reader at a gas station pump, had stolen my information to use a gas card, and I turned around a month later and I had over $1,000 of gas on that stolen on my card, which I was not responsible for. But what are your theories on why the government will not intervene with stopping all this cybercrime, all this identity theft? I have a theory there's a kickback somewhere.
Well, if I can answer, Vinny, but prior to the year 2003, the FBI didn't have a cybercrime bureau. In 2004, I went to work with the FBI out of Utah because some criminals made the mistake of ripping us off, my company, for over $50,000. And I don't take that laying down. I wanted these bastards. So I contacted the FBI. They outfitted me with a computer system, and they gave me a license to kill, so to speak. Meaning anything I do on the internet, I'm not going to get in trouble. So my son and I we discovered the dark web, and we discovered all of this crap that you're talking about. This isn't individuals doing this generally. These are organized groups that are setting up these skimmers, which is what hit you. There would be 50 people in a state setting these up. And in the United States, there'd be 500 of them, and they all work for the same organization. And there's different organizations. And then there's the organizations that when there's giant floods, they swarm on the area, and this is disgusting, but this is real. They pick the bodies, and they take everything that bodies have on them. This was extremely prevalent with the Sumatra. Remember that when Sumatra got hit with that wave?
Right. Tsunami.
Yeah. Okay. They pick the bodies clean of everything, and then they they have whole rooms, whole buildings that they start using all these credit cards and buying stuff fast as they can. And usually it's on eBay, and usually it's CDs or something, or games or something like that. And then they turn around and sell them at half price. So this is big time. So I discovered all of this, right? So we were working on this, and I'm keeping logs, and I'm reporting to my handler and all of this crap. And 2 years later, I'm informed that thank you, your services are no longer needed, and the FBI started a cybercrime division. And the way the FBI works is this: they don't care about the criminals; they care about the kingpin. They care about how they can use this data to take some bigger guy down. So you are acceptable collateral damage. This is how it works. They don't care. I've had sit-down meetings with them, the FBI, and they tell me, well, we don't care about these guys. We don't care about all these guys ripping people off on the dark web. We don't care about these. You want to buy 1,000 PayPal accounts at a penny a piece, then you can buy them. It's no big deal. We don't care about that. Now, that's how it works. I hate to say this. So you've got to get intelligent enough to where you can control and take care of yourself. And this is what that pissed me off. That was it. All the work I did, I thought I was doing something great. No. And
well, you mentioned chat rooms, and it's funny because I just looked up my chat room, which I did not start up. A loyal listener started it up a while back, over a year ago. And I don't know when it's happened, but I have no chat room anymore. And I know John Stadtmiller discouraged anybody who created a chat room to please take them down because they're nothing more than troll sites. I monitored mine pretty closely. I saw a few in there once in a while, and they didn't stay long. They were weeded out. They left the chat room, but I just now seeing I cannot pull it up, so it no longer exists. My chat room, which I'm okay with.
Was it Chatango?
Yeah, it was Chatango. Yeah.
Yeah, they changed the algorithm. Just go to the main Chatango site, and you can do that. You can create another one. I had to do the same thing. I had to put my website back up, and I had to do the same thing. And you have a lot more controls over it now. And here's the thing that most people don't know. In fact, I sent my whole report on trolls to John years ago when I got done with it. Chatango is cool because if you're banned in one Chatango, you're banned all of them. Mm-hmm. So if you ban somebody, then he's banned from my chat room as well.
Right. Got it.
Yeah.
So
and
we've got a guy who loves to beat us up using probably the 95-5 rule, 95% hit and run, 5%. Well, that might have been a good comment that was on USA Prepares, that kind of thing. And he traded by the name of 408 Magenta. And so when he did a number of hit and runs that involved my family who have nothing to do with radio, I decided to ask Ron Gibson, who owns the channel on YouTube, the Ron Gibson channel, if he would ban him. And he did. This guy resurfaced as 408 Magenta. Okay? Just so we'd all know he's the same turd. He came back immediately. And Ron Gibson said, yeah, I can ban him, Vinny, but he'll be right back. And he was. Came right back. So these are people who don't mind being rude. They don't mind people disliking them. They have a character defect as far as I'm concerned, whether they are paid trolls or whether they are just people who just like to bash and hit and run. And I see no difference.
It's a game to them. It's a game to them. And they want to be right. They want to win. They don't give a crap what's right or wrong. They want to win, and they try that. Now in Chatango, you can ban heuristics. You can ban the word. So he can never be called magenta again. You can ban that simple word. But
class, I hope that
talk to him.
I hope that class, if you decide that you want to pursue these guys, that you just ban them. But here's how I look at this, gentlemen. I look at these trolls as the same as, think of a neighborhood, and where people have a third of an acre or a quarter of an acre or half an acre or 1 acre. And there's one guy builds a swimming pool. He's got some young daughters and he's got a pretty wife. And they build a swimming pool for their own use in their backyard. But then they decide to put up a stockade fence because of people leering. And then what happens is there's this one neighborhood troll who, climbs up on a little makeshift ladder and peers over or hooks up a camera. Now, back in the 1960s, if that happened, that guy would be pummeled. He would be beaten. He would be ostracized. He'd be driven out of the neighborhood if he lived there. Now, he's just, a little bit deranged, but, he'll be
If I can make a suggestion, Kurt, maybe you agree with me on this one, that ban them, block them on your website, but don't let them know that you have blocked them, because this won't be coming under a different name next time. So I block people, and don't tell them that I've been blocked, that you've been blocked. And so they don't come in through the back door through a different email address. So just block them, don't let them know.
Yeah. Vinny, we've got to talk about the banking thing right after this.
Yes. What I was saying is that I think that these people are sick. Just like a peeping Tom, someone would look in someone's bathroom window, someone who would peer in at underage girls in a swimming pool. I think of all of them in the same way, the trolls and them, and people who hide cameras in bathrooms. All the same to me. We'll be right back. Steve Elkins is with us. Kurt Wilson's with us. Kurt, you and I were talking off the air about banking. This is absolutely important information that you're going to share. Please tell us what's happened to you.
Okay. My company, Survival Enterprise, has been in business 35 years. And we've taken credit cards. We take checks. We ship all over the world. We sell nutritional products. And okay. So about 4 years ago, I decided, something pops up on the scene called CBD oil. So being an investigator and being in a nutritional business, I started to investigate it. So it was a 2-year investigation. And to make a long story short, we started selling, amongst all our other products, some CBD oil. Maybe 4 different, types, and that's it. So we have 100 products, and out of the 100 products, 4 of them are CBD oil. And these had nothing to do with marijuana. It's the hemp plant, whole different thing. All of a sudden, my bank account gets canceled. I go, what the hell's going on? We don't know. It come down from up high. So I went, got another bank account. Then next thing you know, my credit card company get canceled. I can no longer take credit cards. So this vicious cycle went on for about a year. And I started to do some research on it, and I talked to my farmer, who's in Kentucky, and he was having the same problem. And then I talked to my brother, who's a representative for the National Rifle Association, and he's having the same problem. As a matter of fact, the banks canceled in New York. They canceled the bank account for the NRA. And then I'm talking to other people. There's chiropractors that are having they're no longer able to take credit cards, or can't get insurance, or all of these things. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? So I started doing some research on this. It is happening all over the United States. This is the backdoor control of and it's based from the pharmaceutical and banking corporations. and you put the pharmaceutical corporations and the deep state and the banking, and all of a sudden you have full control over who can buy and sell, kind of like the mark of the beast. So it's like you can't take credit cards if you sell a certain product. There's no law against it. It's just a matter of it's how these big corporations are going to control people and control how they can if they can even be in business. They have no worries whatsoever putting a business out of business who's been in business 35 years. So we worked around that. We can take checks, and we have a good bank account, and we have this kind of stuff. But the government is actually working on this now to stop this. Yes, banks can have, and financial institutions can have their own requirements and rules. But you know what? When you control the livelihood of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, and you come up with the idea that you cannot do this with if you sell extended magazines, and we find out that, and this is Citibank, this is the credit card, Citibank. I got a letter, and I have it laminated at my desk. If you sell any firearms to somebody under the age of 21, if you sell extended magazines or accessories that turn any firearm into a assault weapon, and we find out, then that charge will be reversed. This is real. This is not make-believe. And I'm not alone. And I don't sell guns. I did until 2005, and then I retired from that. So this is arrogant. And there are people who are out of business, like in Washington, right next door to me, 30 miles west of me. They have the pot shops because recreational marijuana is legal there. Every pot shop in the state of Washington has an armed guard, at least one. Why? Because they cannot take checks or credit cards. They take cash only. And this is insane. And it's because the banks don't want to get involved with any kind of product that the government tells them not to, even though it's 100% legal.
Kurt, I have a question for you on that. When the government comes back, or if the people, the deciders, say that you've sold something, an accessory to firearms, to make it an assault firearm, that's a broad term that can be, I guess, by who determines what an assault firearm is, because any weapon used outside of normal of what we use it for target practice or whatever, or for defense, any firearm could be said or be called an assault firearm. So that's a broad term to use to say, well, what's the criteria here?
Well, that's the thing, and this is the CEO of Citibank saying this. It's his backdoor attempt at gun control.
Right.
And it's getting worse and worse. Literally, it's getting worse and worse. And that's why Mitch McConnell is trying to pass a banking regulation to forbid it.
I don't have a Citibank credit card.
That's Costco. That's a problem. Costco is a Citibank card. So we refuse them. We won't take them in their store.
Good for you. Class, heads up. You might want to shuffle your credit cards in your wallet and put Citibank at the very back, where you don't get to use it very much. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepare. Steve Elkins is with us. Off the Beaten Path is his broadcast on Sundays on republicbroadcasting.org, if you would like to tune in. Steve, what time, Central Time, does your broadcast air?
It is, let's see, Eastern Time. Okay, so it'd be 8 to 10 Central, 7 to 9. Yeah, 7 to 9 Central, 8 to 10 Eastern Standard. So, yeah, I'm down here in Florida. So.
Okay. And, Steve, I just heard on the news that, in one part of the country, the government corporation is going to change the term, like manhole cover. Can't use that term anymore. You have to use, I guess, maintenance cover, because I guess manhole is gender specific. And I don't know if you've ever tried to pick one up, class, but they weigh so much that very, very rarely are they stolen, because they weigh so much. And the other thing about them is They're round. And the reason they're round is because they don't want them to fall in.
Right.
And that is the one shape that will prevent a manhole cover from falling in.
Right.
Because if it did, it'd take 3 guys to get it back out because they weigh so much. And they can support the weight of these 18-wheelers and buses and trucks and whatever is pounding them day and night as vehicles go over them. Steve, we have
Vincent,
lowered our standard.
I got a funny story to share with you on that. Not only are they getting politically correct, PC correct on these gender things, but when I lived in Tallahassee, it was so funny because they put in certain neighborhoods, they put in these speed bumps. And I saw it was printed in the paper. They no longer called them speed bumps. They called them traffic calming devices. And I thought, well, who's complaining about speed bump? But evidently the PC nonsense extends a little further than the gender.
I got to tell you, they are a nuisance. These speed bumps or these speed control bumps are a nuisance. They are just brutal on the suspension. Absolutely brutal. So if the 80-20 rule applied, it's probably not 80-20. I don't think 20% of the people are racing through these areas that have children playing in neighborhoods and so forth. I think it's less than that are doing that, but they're causing problems for 100% of us by having us put these speed bumps in. Yeah, and Steve, I was thinking about the lowering of the bars and standards that we're seeing all around us. And one of the things that's happening is perversion is now considered normal. Yeah. I object to it. It absolutely object.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to see people walking around with hair that's green and blue and yellow and purple and orange. To me, that's disgusting. And you know, you and I have talked about risky behavior, and I believe that someone who is so obtuse as to do that would be careless in the handling of food for other people, meaning restaurant employees. Someone who sticks a tongue ring in, would have a piercing of their tongue, would be, inclined to be less careful with food and hygiene than I would be. Correct. So I don't want any part of it. So what do we do if it's illegal to be politically incorrect and we can't say things or make fun of these people? Well, then what we do is we vote with our wallets and we don't go to that restaurant. And we make those comments, and I think it's okay. I think it's okay to be walking, like let's say you and I are walking through a store and there's a whole bunch of people there. I think it'd be okay to say, you know what? I don't want to go to that restaurant because they've got people there who have things stuck in their tongues and they reach into their mouth before they serve the food. And I don't want that in the handling of my food. And I think we could talk about that for a few seconds. Then now 20 people have just heard that.
You know, Vincent, not being able to voice your opinion or your displeasure or disagreement is really, I mean, first of all, we have the right to do that. We have the right to say, wait a minute, I disagree or I agree. But, I mean, look at the whole industry of stand-up comedian. What is the whole industry of a stand-up comedian? To poke fun at the little things that people do. Well, if we can't voice our opinion, even in fun, about the quirkiness of people and the way they behave and the way they dress, my God, I mean, this is pretty serious stuff that you're not able to have an opinion unless it agrees with their opinion. And if you voice your opinion, well, that's hate speech, and then it has to go, and, of course, the attacks come. It's pretty amazing where we're headed to this free speech zone, which is getting smaller and smaller, by the way, but you don't have the right to criticize. You don't have the right to question. You don't have the right to challenge. There's a problem with that. I have a serious problem with that.
I do, too. However, I do think that some of the stand-up comedy has gotten absolutely over-the-top, outrageous, disgusting.
Agreed.
And you know, so back to the 80-20 rule. Probably it's 99-1, and it's that 1% is just so offensive. I don't want to see any of it. But I just read the headlines that says Michelle Obama. Now, this is going to be hard to believe, class. quote, Michelle Obama, most admired woman in the world, new poll says.
No.
Now that I find really hard to believe.
You should.
Michelle Obama. I mean, it looks like her fashion designer was Omar, the tent maker. I mean, there's nothing about that woman that I like. Nothing. She, she swings and sways and dances around and, does these moves. And when she's on the big screen, she is pro black at the expense of everything else. I have a problem with that. What's wrong with being pro right, pro correct, pro moral, pro values? I'm okay with that, but I'm not pro any particular race, color, or creed. There are plenty of them, and there's plenty of good in most, if not all of them. So why not be pro everybody?
Right.
No.
Well, what you've mentioned there, Vincent, is actually racism. She's for one race, and everybody else falls outside. She's very pro-black, no doubt about it. Not pro-American. She's pro-black, no doubt about it.
Right. Steve, let's talk about some observations. What would you like to share with us that you've observed in the big world?
Well, that's interesting you say, because I flew up here to Indiana to take care of some business, and living in Florida, so I had like 2-hour flight, and I'm one of those focal kind of guys. I look around, I look, I watch, I observe behavior, mannerisms, dress, everything, and I noticed in travel there really is no care in appearance these days. I saw people traveling, young girls and teenagers, college girls, traveling in pajamas, house slippers, people traveling in a T-shirt with beer stains, hot dog mustard stain on it, sexual revealing clothing, tattoo on a woman's breast. In Scripture, I guess we were supposed to read it. It was exposed that much, and I'm sure if we made a comment on it, I'm sure she would have been offended and called for the sexual harassment PC police, but not sure why she'd had something like that tattooed and to actually show us. The piercings, the large ear loop hoops, I saw tons of those on my flight. Nose piercings, lip piercings, body piercings. Vincent, they say the body is the temple and should be respected. Well, I see a lot of people out there that have a lot of graffiti taggers marking up their temples. But I'm also seeing the encouragement of the girly man, which was first coined the phrase by Arnold Schwarzenegger, actually pronounced Schwarzenegger, but the Americans can't seem to pronounce the name correctly, so he gave up on that. But the girly man, the pink ties, the pink shirts, and I started thinking about it. I was watching TV a little bit, and I'm seeing it also in the mainstream media and the talking heads on all the networks there. And I'm seeing men with pink ties and pink shirts, and I thought to myself, it doesn't gain a whole lot of credibility and respect. And can you imagine Walter Cronkite on the CBS Evening News if he came out and gave us the information that JFK was just assassinated and he was wearing a pink shirt or a pink tie? Now, how much credibility would we have given Walter Cronkite had he been dressing like a, what do you want to say, foo-foo or whatever? There's a definite agenda here to feminize the American man. They're starting with children, teenagers, young adults, and to show that feminine side, get in touch with your feminine side. And I know we all know that's part of Agenda 2030, but it's quite amazing. Look at your TV, watch feminine, girly colors on the young men. Pretty amazing.
Okay, so on the internet, I keep getting this one particular ad, and it's these two girls, probably in their 20s, and they're like really pressed against each other, and they are standing. The next thing, there's a bed scene, and they're traveling. It's like, this is normal. This is normal for what it's hinting at is that being queer, that's okay. I mean, that's okay.
Yeah.
Another thing that seems to be making the news, which I find absolutely revolting and disgusting, is this gal of color, and I'm not sure what heritage she's from, but she thought it would be really cool to open some ice cream in Walmart, lick it, put the cover back on, and put it back in.
Yep.
Well, some Texas teenager decided that he would follow in the footsteps of this disgusting woman of color who thought it was cool, and they did a little selfie-type video of this, and it made it to the internet, and of course she was arrested, and I hope she is charged and does prison time for this to show those who might also want to do the same thing that it's unacceptable. Well, a Texas teenager was arrested after he was caught on camera opening an Arizona tea, bottle of sealed tea, spitting in it, and putting the bottle back on the shelf.
Amazing.
Now, where does that come from?
I don't know. I don't know. People say these are interesting times. These are bizarre times. I don't know. I agree with you 100%. Something has to be done. A harsh punishment to send a message. I guess we're going to have safety seals on everything you think of, safety seal if it's consumed, because of people like this. I don't know where it comes from, dare, or is this just an agenda? No idea. It's just the honest, the most bizarre behavior I've ever seen, that people could do these things.
You know, one thing that might make sense is in Virginia, when someone wrote a bad check, like to a gas station, where those, we'll call them convenience type, fill up and get some junk snacks at one of those places. If you wrote a bad check, they put your name on the wall right behind the cashier, and it said bad checks. So you were shamed into paying your bill. Let's talk about how that would relate to these thugs with the ice cream and the tea. We'll be right back. Steve Elkins is with us. So, Steve, there are a number of situations where products have been contaminated.
Uh-huh.
Now, in Michigan, 5 Michigan officials, alleged officials, face involuntary manslaughter charges over the Flint water contamination. So a man died from drinking the municipal water from Flint, Michigan. Now, they knew it was contaminated, and the officials just did not notify the public. So many people have gotten sick. It's been an enormous scandal, and there are people who may end up going to prison, which I think they absolutely positively should. Well, in the case of this young thug, this teenager, intentionally damaging a product and putting it back on the shelves for other people to consume, if someone gets sick from that, even if someone doesn't get sick, I think these young people should be charged and imprisoned. And, of course, the attorneys would say, for the defense would say, yeah, but he's just a child. I mean, what does he really know? He really didn't mean any harm. There was no malice here. It was just a prank. No.
Well, actually, what the attorneys would do, they go for the deep pockets. So they would actually find fault with the manufacturer of the product, that they should have secured the product because of the irresponsible person that actually tainted the item. They would go after the deep pockets. And you're right, they'll probably give them a pass because they're children. They don't know any better. But, yes, you do know better. We all know better. That's not, you don't open up a product, taint it, and then put it back. But the deep pockets of the corporation would probably take the hit.
And the sad thing is that the Arizona Tea Company had nothing to do with this.
Right.
They did not sell a product that was defective.
Right.
They're selling a product. It is sealed. It's got a tamper-proof seal, no question about it. It's got a vacuum seal, no question about it. It's not a cheap product, and yet this turd, this Texas teenager who did this, could literally sink the Arizona Tea Company. Because am I going to want to drink any of that? I don't think so. Does it have anything to do with a bad product? No. It's just I'm concerned. Now I'm concerned, well, not only about Arizona Tea, I'm concerned about all products that have a removable and a resealable cap. That could be a soda. That could be a bottle of water. That could be a tea. That's something not in a can.
Yeah.
Now, most people think they're doing a better job of protecting your health by drinking something out of a glass bottle rather than an aluminum can, right? Well, here's a case where the can is probably a better idea, unless one of these stupid people decides to lick the pop tops. on the cans.
Let me give you the possibility. What else could be happening here? And I know this is a really high likely possible situation here. It's called corporate sabotage. You bring down a corporation. You blackmail them to comply with your demands or extort money from them. They refuse, and you simply say, "Well, I'll take you down then." So this could be a possibility of somebody paid to do a corporate sabotage, drive the price down of that product, the stock. Of course, somebody then comes in, buys up all the stock or a lot of the stock, and then suddenly this whole thing just blows over. Something else comes in, and the stock suddenly makes a rise back up, and the person who actually drove the stock down, the whole agenda, comes out really, really quite rich. Corporate sabotage could be one of the situations going on here, possibly.
Mm-hmm. And we don't know who to trust. For example, there's a story in the Los Angeles Times about a gun running Long Beach customs agent who had 41 machine guns stashed at his home. Now, machine guns, it's legal to own a machine gun if you pay the tax stamp.
Right.
You can do that. You can own a machine gun. If you're not a felon and if your state allows it and your locality allows it, you can. But here's a guy who was gun running, literally illegally gun running in California and selling guns illegally. And he is a customs agent, a U.S. Customs and Border Protection agent with the Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach. And he admitted to running an illegal gun operation. So here we have an official of the U.S. government who's a gun runner. How about that? So who do you trust? I don't know. With the amount of me-firsters out there, with the amount of pedophilia out there, and we look at the top ranks of alleged society, pedophiles. Steve Elkins is with us. Steve, I've noticed kind of a strange phenomenon in the health professionals' behavior. I'm talking about the young ones, like in the 20s, and they're in their 20s and 30s. And they're embracing wireless technology, I think, more than most people. For example, I noticed that most of the healthcare professionals wear these Fitbit watches that monitor, some of their vitals and transmit them wirelessly somewhere. Yeah. They embrace Alexa, this voice command technology in their homes, Echo technology, voice command. They embrace Facebook and Twitter, and literally, so if they have a Fitbit watch, they have Alexa or Echo and Facebook and Twitter. They embrace it all. Are you seeing that same common thread in your world, which is the world of ICU and emergency rooms in the hospital settings?
Yeah, it's interesting because they sell these things, these electronic devices as a convenience for us all. It's supposed to make our life easier. It's supposed to be simpler. It's supposed to be more efficient, higher quality, whether it's resilience or whatever. They sell it as a convenience and a thing that you must update. You've got to be with the times, sign of the times. But I've always found that the technology where they sell it to you as something that's good, it's going to make your career better, maybe better for patient care or this or that, it always seems to get in the wrong hands, and there are other factors they never factor in, they never consider, and that the technology is actually used against you. With all these young people using all this technology, they really are quite an open book. It's pretty easy to read them. It's pretty easy to build a file on them. It's easy to snoop on them. There's no mystery of who these kids are and what they want and what their demands are. It will be used against them. The technology will be used against them in time.
That's clear to me as well. I want to talk about, just for maybe a minute or so, about products. How often do we buy products and they don't seem to live up to their claims? So, for example, our son went shopping, and he went to the supermarket, And I don't know why, but he came home with a bag of Frito Scoops, jalapeno flavor. And I saw them, and so I tried one. And I folded up the bag, and I put a clip on the end of it. And I got on the phone, and I called, the Frito-Lay company, which is PepsiCo, Pepsi-Cola. And I called them up, and I said, I'm really sorry. I don't know why I did it, but I let my son go shopping. And he came home with this thing, and I'm really not sure what to do with it.
Now, was this Vinny Jr. or is this John?
This would be V3.
Okay, got it.
So, and he's in his 30s, right?
Yeah.
So I'm explaining to this guy on the phone that it's all my fault that I let him loose by himself in a supermarket, and he came home with these things. And I said, actually, I'm really concerned because I don't know what to do with them, because I'm afraid that if I throw them outside and the birds eat them, they're going to die. I'm afraid if I throw them in the trash, they're going to end up in the landfill, and then birds are going to eat them, and wildlife is going to eat them, and they're going to die. What do I do?
Well, I'd say when the cows are constipated, maybe you could use it to flush them out a little bit. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, these things are terrible. They're inedible. I mean, literally, whoever formulated this, plus whoever the taste testers were, plus whoever the focus group was within the corporation of Pepsi-Cola, plus the marketing department who supported this, plus the vice president who signed off on it, all of those people should be fired. These things are awful. I mean, even if you're willing to eat GMO, I decided I would try one just to see. Yeah. They are disgusting in terms of...
Vincent, I'm glad you brought that up because I see what's going on in the marketing. And I see the target audience that they're actually going after. And it's interesting to bring that up because just at a liquor store, I was curious. I was doing some research on something, and I walked in the liquor store. And, you have different kinds of whiskeys and different kinds of vodkas and gins. But I've noticed all the different fruity flavors that are now infused into these alcohols. And that's not for the average drinker. That's actually targeting a young audience, trying to get them on board to drinking alcoholic beverages, these hard alcohol. And I kid you not, they do it in everything, with tobacco flavors. We see now the vaping is a big thing. Now we've got different flavors in the vaping, targeting who? The young teenage crowd to bring in more revenue. It's all about money, Vincent. It seems like they're just trying to cash in on the kids, cashing in on the kids.
Well, when I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. And that's what Kool-Aid was about. They did that with Jell-O. They did that with, if you saw how gelatin was made, animal hides and bones and all, you'd never eat it. But as far as complaining, I think we should. So if you happen to buy a product that you think does not meet the claims on the bag or the advertising or the box or can, whatever it is, I think you ought to call that 800 number. And what I do is I allocated, like 5 or 10 minutes to this call. And it took me a long time to explain what I was trying to convey. And I was holding this guy up, and he had never heard anybody, explain it, that, just not yelling at him and saying what a lousy product it is. But, I blamed, it was really my fault for letting my son loose and unsupervised.
Yeah.
And now I have this, this disposal problem. Like, what am I going to do with these things? I'm afraid for the environment. And he ended up sympathizing with me. And what did he do? Well, he decided that he was going to send me some coupons. Now, I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do with those, but he decided that he was going to try to make good on this because it was such a serious problem for me because of, how do I dispose of them? And we still haven't figured that out.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I'm going to poison my septic system or what I'm going to do with these, because I certainly don't want to bury them. I don't want to send them to the landfill. I don't want to look at them. I'm not sure what to do with them. I'm probably going to send them for further digesting in the septic system. I think that's what I'm going to do.
It would be interesting if you found out it killed rats, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Guess it'd be a good product then.
Uh-huh.
For killing
so
rats.
the whole point of this class is I think you ought to pick up your phone and write your notes as to what you're going to say, at a convenient time for you, and call these companies. If you have a bona fide complaint, call them up and ask them, what they recommend you do. Seriously.
Yeah.
And that's that. I am actually making that part of the radio broadcast. When I find a product that I don't like, I'll talk about it. I mentioned that I bought some moringa seeds and some moringa tree saplings. And I mentioned that I would report as to what happened. I bought 3 saplings. They arrived. 2 of them were too small to survive the trip. One of them was large enough to survive the trip. So what I'm saying, 6-inch tall sapling, and those 2 didn't make it. I bought 3 because I thought 1 would die. Actually, 2 died. So I transplanted them, and I didn't have any pots. So what I did was, since we have a solar system that uses distilled water, I buy distilled water by the case. I usually use about 10 gallons of distilled water every 45 days. So I save they look like milk bottles or milk jugs. Same container is used for distilled water from the Chinese factory outlet or Menards. So I save them in the box, and I cut them so that they would make kind of like a pot. And I transplanted them into that. And the 3, I transplanted 3, 2 survived. I'm sorry, 2 died, 1 survived. So that was a quick fix, and I used garden soil that I purchased. And that seemed to work okay. But what really worked a lot better was the seeds, the moringa seeds. They were way less expensive. And what I did was I put them on a paper towel, wet it, and put 2 paper towels over that with a clear cover in one of those Chinese takeout containers. And so I put them in there, just put them on the counter. A couple days later, they sprouted, then we transplanted them. So that seems to be working really well. So save your money. Don't buy the saplings. Buy the seeds, and it seems to work just fine.
Good.
So now they're not large enough to eat yet, but I plan on eating them in salads, washing the leaves, eating them in salads. I haven't figured out the best way to eat them, but Dr. Shealy buys it in powder and mixes it in a slushy. So I want to do our own. By the way, Mrs. Finelli grew some potatoes in the garden. She bought some slips. They worked beautifully. Absolutely. We have magnificent potatoes. So can you grow potatoes? Yes, you can. Can you grow them in a big bucket? Yes, you can. And no insecticides, no pesticides, nothing. Just the soil from our garden with the wood ashes. Yeah. That's it. And some lime. That's it.
Yeah, I saw something on the internet where you can use old tires to grow potatoes. And you may want to look on the internet on that, to use an old tire.
Yeah. There's a couple ways you can do that. You can just take the tires the way they are and fill them with soil.
Right.
Or you can cut out the sidewalls.
Right.
Now, it's almost impossible to cut through the bead. The bead is like really strong steel braid, like aircraft cable.
Yeah.
It's really tough to cut through that. But if you cut right where the sidewall meets the tread with a Sawzall, you can cut it quickly. And then what you have is like a short cylinder.
Yeah.
It's just a ring. And you can use that, and it keeps the dirt in one place. I think that's the hot setup.
Yeah.
Or you can just cut out the top part of the tire, one side of the sidewall, leave the bottom part of the sidewall in place,
right.
And use that, and just have the largest opening where you cut out the sidewall as the highest part, and fill it with dirt. Now, it doesn't make for a beautiful looking garden, except maybe in Arkansas or West Virginia, but.
Uh-oh. Now you're going to get some hate mail on that one.
Well, I don't have enough listeners.
Okay.
I figure we've got one listener, and I was thinking about the odds. So the odds were in our favor that our listener is not either in Arkansas or West Virginia. And now Tim is in West Virginia, and he'll probably call me and tell me that, yes, I'm right, that there is a contest for the best-looking garden with tires. And seriously, now very seriously, you can use tires for some cool things.
Yeah.
For example, we have some creeks where they cross fields, and we need to get across them. What you can do is you can put culverts in. Those are those round tubes to let the water go under or through the tubes. And then you can put some dirt on top of the culverts. And then you can put some tires on top of a layer of dirt. And then you can bolt the tires together. And then you can put more dirt on there. And the tires prevent the dirt from escaping and washing away. And that really works. We'll be right back. Steve Elkins is with us, Off the Beaten Path, Sundays on republicbroadcasting.org. Steve, observations?
Yeah, I saw one more I think your listeners might be interested in. And pay close attention to your commercials on TV. Very interesting. You're seeing a big push for multiracial unions. I see a lot of commercials with black men and white women. It's being pushed very, very hard. It's not just once in a while. Your commercials are being really swamped with this black man and white woman thing. Take notice in these TV commercials. What they are selling is more than a product. I guarantee you that. It is part of the cultural globalization. They're trying here, the relationships, globalization, and have us all looking the same, basically a nice tan population, erasing white privilege. But notice these commercials. I kid you not. I see them all the time. I point to my wife and say, look, another one. Black man, white woman. Black man, white woman. That is not by accident. That is very purposeful, these commercials.
When I thought back about, how America was built, we had immigrants from all over. We had Irish, we had Polish, we had Italians and Germans, and we had Asians, blacks. And what I noticed that there was little Italy, there was little Poland, there was little Germany in the cities.
Yes.
And that's because people like them. People have various values and cultures, and the Poles have their values and culture. The Italians do, the Germans do. We all do. And people tend to like people like them. And I don't see anything wrong with that.
Right.
Now, I don't have friends that are Italian or German or any particular group. I just have friends. But what happened in the building of this country, people associated with people like themselves because that's what they knew.
Right.
That was their culture. And I don't seem to have any problem with that. I really don't. So, I would prefer that our children marry someone who has the same values and the same culture. I would be livid if one of our children married a bisexual. I mean, I'd go over the top crazy if that happened, because I know how it ends. I know that it will end terribly.
Right.
And I know that there'll be a lot of pain and hurt and anguish. So I don't want to see any of that. And I don't want our children to marry, and not one of our children is married. They haven't seemed to find the perfect mate at this point. And I'm talking, our youngest is in his mid-20s, and our oldest is in their 30s. And they still haven't found the right person. But finding someone who's not a drug addict, who's not been pierced, tattooed, who hasn't been in jail, who doesn't have a criminal record, who's not a substance abuser, who can think, who has morals and values, who has a purpose, and who's not associated with a family of criminals, that's pretty tough to find someone who meets that criteria. And then let alone, boy, it'd be nice if that person were pretty or handsome, and had a family that you'd like to have over for the barbecue.
My father would say, the most important decision you will ever make in your life is to find the right mate and to assess character. Character is very important in a relationship. If it is to be, long-term or if it's short-lived, but character and is the most important decision you will ever make in your life, finding the right mate.
My mom said something I couldn't believe when I was dating Mrs. Finelli. And she said, I think it's better to live with a person before you get married to make sure you really like them. Now, my parents loved my wife. I mean, they absolutely, my grandparents did. Everybody did. And with reason, because she's a really nice, caring, hardworking, giving, moral type person. Well, and by the way, I valued their opinion. I wanted to know what they thought beforehand.
Right.
And, because I wanted to make sure I didn't make a mistake.
Right.
And I'm sure she did the same thing as well. But how many people don't care what their parents think about the relationship with, their children's potential mate?
Yeah.
How many children don't care?
Yeah. They take more time they spend more time looking for accessories for their car, their brand new car or this or that, than they do for something that's the most important thing in their life, finding the right mate for them.
Mm-hmm.
They really do.
Yeah, and I cannot imagine what it would be like to have a high-maintenance wife.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine.
Me neither.
Mrs. Finelli does not wear makeup, never has. She doesn't have any piercings, no tattoos.
And she's a beautiful woman.
And she's not into high fashion.
And I mean that.
Well,
not just saying it.
Thank you. I happen to agree with you. I really do. I met her in 4th grade, and she was the prettiest girl in the class. And every day, I thank her for being my wife. And really, I do. And I think, class, you might want to consider doing the same thing with your wife or your husband. I thank all of our children for being our children. I thank all of our animals for adopting us. And I mean it. I really mean it. Steve Elkins, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Vincent. Appreciate it.